been keeping the stock a lot more busy in terms of the trends. We've seen a breakout happening for Hindustan Copper just about, I think, last week or this week, the initial couple of days, where it's seen the stock, breaking past about strong psychological mark, as well as round figure numbers. So I think in that sense, Hindustan Copper is something which looks attractive, about 300 plus mark. Short-term perspective, with the swing breakout, the volumes coming back, etc., I would actually believe that this could be a potential strong breakout candidate with a near-term target of 330 to 340 range for Hindustan Copper. So bullish on the stock price, and I think even if in case the stock opens with say a couple of percentage points on the upside, I think positionally higher targets of 330, 340 could be possible.
Okay, so that's the take on Hindustan Copper. We also have Amnish Aggarwal, the head of research at PL Capital, joining us on the show. Amnish, hi, morning. In the first sector, let's chat about Pharma. Significant news flow coming in overnight on the Pharma stocks. You have Glenmark Pharma in focus on the back of its pact for the advancement of their oncology portfolio. Polymedicure, of course, Dr. Reddy's has received, they've actually tied up with Hetero to sell their HIV prevention drug. And similarly, Lupin has also received a go-ahead for its HIV drug. So much news flow happening in Pharma and so many segments in focus. Amnish, where do you think within Pharma there is still value, because the CDMO space has already seen quite the run-up?
Yeah, hi. You see, these kind of news flows continue coming in the pharma space because many of them are event-driven, and the actual impact of them then actually pans out over the say next 12 to 18 months. Sometimes even it takes slightly more than that. But having said that, usually the market discounts these actions very very quickly because these are, you can say, one-time kind of events which continue to happen. Now, as far as the pharma space is concerned, if you look at, say, particularly the companies which are more on the, you can say, the generic side, then on the generic side, I think Sun Pharma is one stock which we have been liking. Sun Pharma is there. Even your this Lupin Labs. Lupin Labs is one stock where I think the things are looking reasonably good. And even I think a couple of days back, even I think Dr. Reddy's, they also had an announcement that they have got a new approval which will significantly, you can say, neutralize the negative impact which was likely from Revlimid. So I think some of these counters, say particularly if you look at, say, Lupin, Sun, so these are some of the companies which we like. Even on decline, even one can look at, say, Cipla.
Right, okay, that's the take coming in and some of the pharma names. Just looking at the market texture from yesterday, and Kunal, we were chatting about as to how the FPI limit in PSBs may actually be upped. Other than SBI, where within the PSU banking pack are you seeing a trade opportunity?
So I think PNB, Canara Bank was one of the stocks which I recommended. That's another name which has been doing very well. PNB is something which I think has a lot of prospect on the upside. Bank of India, I think, has been a huge underperformer. And I think even if the stock comes back towards its previous swing highs, when you compare this with the price relative strength across the peers, then you might probably expect a swift upside of 10 to 15% on an immediate basis. Bank of Maharashtra, I think, is something which has a high potential, but the stock somehow has just about traded in a range on the upside. But most of the other names, I was looking at the charts for IDBI, etc., those stocks have a lot of promise for themselves, but they've slightly underperformed with respect to the peers. Union Bank is the other stock, I think, trading at 137 or 40 range. That's another name which still looks attractive even at current levels. So I believe that there are so what happens is when you see a leader emerging from the entire pack which heads into a breakout, strong volume price action, the price move being backed by strong buyers at every levels when the stock is climbing up higher, that generally augurs very well or puts in a stimulus for the entire sector. And I think that's exactly what has happened for the PSU banking name. So I would actually believe that you might probably expect a move where the tier 2 large cap names, they would start to look a lot more attractive now, but there would come a phase where even the small cap and the tier 3 large cap stocks or the mid cap and the PSU banking stocks, they would also start to look attractive.
All right, so that's about the public sector banks, and today, of course, we have a note coming in from Citi as well, where they have reinitiated coverage on Citi with on SBI, I beg your pardon, on with a buy rating, and target price is 1,050 rupees. What they're saying is that they're seeing improved advances growth visibility backed by the traction of the credit card, robust corporate pipeline, and some of the other factors with respect to valuations is what they are liking at this point in time. So let's watch out for SBI. SBI. But Amnish, just wanted to have your take on SBI cards rather, because that stock too is doing very well. Of late, we have been reading out the reports that how the credit card spends has been inching higher, and especially after that GST 2.0 rollout. But Amnish, do you believe that it will be a short-lived excitement with respect to the credit card spends, or do you believe that this particular story has more headroom to play in going in the times ahead?
You see, I can only give you a broader take on this. Usually what happens is that if you look at the spends on the credit cards, so in terms of the absolute spends, they have been rising. But in terms of, say, the ticket size also, there is actually a spike which happened during the festival season. And this year in particular, due to GST cuts, as the consumer spending is expected to increase, so this should have definitely some near to medium term impact on the SBI credit cards or any company which is dealing with the credit cards. But having said that, it depends on two things. First of all, how sustainable and how long will this cut in the prices of the consumer goods in particular. So how long will that result in the continued traction in terms of, say, higher volumes for the credit card companies? That is one. The second is in terms of how the lower middle class to middle class, some of the people who are having cards who have been having some sort of pressure on their wallet, and that is resulting in a lot of pressure for many of these companies. So how that actually evens out and how the pressure on that eases. So I think, however, if you look at, say, past few years, if you took 3-4 years kind of a scenario, SBI cards actually has not given any returns. So if this now consumption demand actually picks up, then there's a possibility of, you can say, making some, you can say, returns over here, but won't be able to give you any targets in this.
Okay, so that's the take on SBI cards in the entire credit card spending industry. But on that note, we'll slip into a very short break. Be right back and talk more about the trade setup that we can expect to see today.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ, डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड भी, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
What are you watching, Dad?
Don't you often say, think before investing in the stock market? So I'm trying to gain some knowledge.
From whom?
That's this stocks expert. Makes great educational videos. Gives good investment tips too.
Dad, don't rely on such videos. Do your own research or contact a SEBI-registered investment advisor. In the name of education, some influencers often misguide investors. You will have to bear the losses.
An investor awareness initiative by SEBI.
मिशन चढ़ती कला, और मैं भारत के हर नागरिक को, उद्योगपति को, चैरिटेबल ट्रस्टों को, कलाकारों को, पूरी दुनिया में बसते पंजाबियों को, बहन भाइयों को दिल से अपील करता हूँ, आओ पंजाब को दोबारा अपने पांव पे खड़े करने का टाइम आ गया है। पुनर्वास में और रिस्ट्रक्चर में पंजाब का साथ दीजिए। मैं वचन देता हूँ, जो भी आप मेहनत की कमाई से 1 रुपया भी अगर निकालोगे तो 1.25 रुपया बना के हम पारदर्शिता और ईमानदारी से इस्तेमाल करेंगे। और जानकारी चाहिए तो rangla.punjab.gov.in ये वेबसाइट पे जा सकते हैं, सब कुछ डिटेल मिल जाएगा। आओ मिलकर हाथ से हाथ जोड़ के एक ऐसा पुण्य इसमें योगदान डालें और बता दें दुनिया को कि पंजाब किसी भी संकट के सामने।
पता बदलेगा, जिंदगी बदलेगी। लिविंग रूम में तो जैसे हाथी घोड़े दौड़ेंगे, कोई बचपन जब मेहमान हमारा होगा। पता बदलने का ख्याल अपने साथ हमेशा जिंदगी बदलने की उम्मीद ले आता है। मैजिक ब्रिक्स, पता बदलो, लाइफ बदलो।
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ, डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
Back with the market, and let's keep our conversation going with the fundamental as well as our technical experts. And Amnish, want to get your sense on the entire real estate space. The kind of activity that we've seen from companies that were not into real estate foraying over there. For example, first up you had Birla, Century moved into real estate. You also have Raymond that has started real estate. And now the latest news is KRBL, a rice exporting, rice manufacturing company, is also amending its articles of association to factor in real estate as one of the businesses. What do you have to say on this foray into real estate by some of the existing marquee players? Because if you take a look at what the real estate numbers have been in terms of demand and supply, it's been quite subdued.
You see, it is not a question of demand and supply. Some of the names which you mentioned, so there were reasons for their entering the real estate market. For example, Raymond used to have a huge textile facility in Thane, which actually came closer to where there was a residential scope, and then they converted that land, and so as you can say Raymond Realty, then that company got into shape. Similarly, you look at say Century. Again, in this case, they were having the land parcels which were close to the habitations, and as the development happened. So I think we are not exactly aware of how KRBL is, but many of these companies who didn't have any presence in the real estate, the reason for them going into the real estate at the first place has been that they were having land parcels which came closer to the, you can say, areas where they could actually develop. So that is the reason why today we are looking at more and more number of the industrial houses who have got land. So they are, rather than selling it outrightly, many of them are actually creating real estate companies, and once you develop one or two projects, and then they are actually looking at some kind of a partnerships for taking it forward. As far as demand is concerned, I think the real estate demand is, I would say it is not in a very, very great shape as of now. The supply is increasing, you can say, in many of these micro markets. And suffice to say, I think unless and until the pre-booking numbers or the booking numbers, they show significant increase, I think there is not likely to be, you can say, very, very significant amount of, say, good news coming from the real estate place. Yes, interest rates have been cut. So that is a positive, but otherwise, I think in the near term, I don't see any big triggers coming for real estate.
Okay, so that's your take on the entire real estate space. Amnish, just want to understand fundamentally, now that you have so many newer players coming into real estate, how saturated do you think the market is, and where do you think some of these stocks could be headed, especially for a place like MMR where we are seeing so many players all developing and redeveloping at once?
You see, that is what I'm saying. If you look at, say, MMR region in particular, you look at the, you can say, emerging pockets, whether these are, you can say, central Mumbai or some of these western suburbs, or even if you go to Navi Mumbai area. So the kind of activity which is happening today in terms of redevelopment, and I see a possibility that maybe 6-12 months down the line, that there is likely to be much more supply than the market can absorb. So that is going to, I think, as of now, there is no pressure on prices, but as we move forward, maybe 12 months, 18 months down the line, some sort of a pressure on prices is likely to come in the real estate for sure.
Okay. Let's just look at the Alcobev space. And just the other day, we had Karan Durrani from Elara Securities as well in the studio to talk about how intact he believes the fundamentals for some of these homegrown Alcobev brands is actually at. And there is a note coming in from the House of Jeffries on Radico Khaitan, talking about as to how they're going from strength to strength, and they're really liking what the management interaction has been like. They're saying that the growth momentum remains strong for Radico, and this is after a stellar first quarter number that they've delivered. They believe that the next quarter as well is going to be very strong for them. They're saying that the limited tax hike in Maharashtra and several growth levers are firing on all cylinders for Radico Khaitan, and that should really help improve the profitability, especially with inflation quite manageable across the key inputs, and the pace of innovation when it comes to their premium brands continues to be very, very healthy from Radico Khaitan as well. So they are anticipating from a 37% year-on-year volume growth in Q1 that the growth momentum should manage to even top this 37% growth in volume figure, even more than that. But Kunal, you've been liking Radico on the charts for a while right now. Stack it up with, I don't know, a Sula, for instance, which has really been a non-starter, a United Spirits, UBL, etc. Why? I mean, what are you reading on the charts? Can anyone play catch up to how performance from Radico has been?
I think it's been a class apart, frankly, in terms of price performance, and you can't compare the price performance per se with respect to the peers. United Spirits is a stock which is still struggling. I think at 1300, 1370, yesterday the stock was up 0.5% or so. But when you look at this, Sula, I think, has underperformed. There was a phase post the IPO where Sula managed to pick up, good price action, but then post that, we've not seen the stock, showing any kind of a major recovery, and it's been a drag over the last many, quarters and over the last many, months as such. And then compared with the likes of United Breweries somehow has been, if I rank it, maybe could be the second best performer from the entire Alcobev space. Radico Khaitan, even at current levels of just closer to the 3,000 mark, I think the momentum, the stability in the stock prices, I think is just exceptional to see. And I think that's where I would believe that traders would probably try to fancy their chances in case if there is any kind of a minor dip into the stock. But then most of the other names have been literally non-starters in terms of price trend. So I would literally sense and avoid which could come into that kind of a list of stocks. But Radico, United Breweries are the two stocks which could look attractive on the space.
Let's talk about Piramal Enterprises as well. And just yesterday, NCLT has given an approval for the merger of Piramal Enterprises with Piramal Finance. My colleague Ankur Mishra is here with more details on exactly what this development is going to entail.
Yes, Piramal Finance has now confirmed that NCLT has given a go-ahead for merger of Piramal Enterprises as well as Piramal Finance. Now, the merger marks the creation of a stronger and more integrated financial services company as per the statement which has been given by Piramal brand. And as part of the process, September 23rd was fixed as a record date for the merger. And from this date, trading in PL securities was ceased, and those names appear in the registry on record date will get the shares of Piramal Finance in the ratio of 1:1. And as far as the distribution and assuming of responsibilities in the companies are concerned, Ajay Piramal will assume the role of chairman of Piramal Finance, and Ajay Piramal will also continue to chair the Piramal Group, which comprises of Piramal Finance, Piramal Pharma, Piramal Realty, as well as Piramal Foundation. But who will lead the merged entity? Now, Jairam Sridharan will be the MD and CEO of the merged entity, and as far as Swati Piramal is concerned, she will continue to serve as the vice chairman of the group after this merger is completed. As far as the financials are concerned, the PEL has reported Q1 numbers with a consolidated AUM reaching 77,572 crore, which was up around 22% YOY. All in all, NCLT has now given a go-ahead of the merger, and now it will be effective as communicated earlier from September 23rd.
All right, thank you so much, Ankur, for getting us all those details. But Amnish, just wanted to have your take. What's your take on this overall news flow regarding Piramal Enterprise? Any take here?
No view on Piramal.
All right, but Kunal, how is the chart looking like when it comes to Piramal Enterprise specifically?
I think now that the trading has stopped, earlier than that, I think Piramal Enterprise was a stock which started to look attractive in a phase. I think from March, April 2025 onwards, there was almost like a 300-pointer rally for the stock from 1050 to 1300 or 1350 mark. It came very close towards breakout of the previous 52-week highs at that point of time. But then post that, I think at 1350 levels, the stock had gone through again a very sharp retracement. So my sense is that maybe the prices were in the anticipation, sold off in the anticipation of this kind of a news flow for Piramal Enterprises. Maybe I think once the stock resumes trading, and assumingly if the stock breaks past about the 1200 mark, I believe that a major uptrend could re-begin for Piramal Enterprise. But as of now, it looks like the stock is just about going through more of a consolidative phase.
Just looking at the market texture yesterday, Keynes, they finally got a new MD at the helm, and that stock was one of the top movers yesterday, managed to hold out about 3%. The entire QSR space also seems to be seeing some traction. Jubilant Foodworks was one of the key gainers, up 2.25%. Amnish, while the street is of course quite gung-ho about the food aggregators, you think the real benefit of more household saving is actually going to trickle through to the QSR spaces now?
You see, QSRs have not got any direct benefit of GST, but having said that, once the disposable income of the consumers go up, so that they are going to benefit. That is point number one. The second, as consumers venture out, particularly in the, I would say, the top 10 cities and even in the tier 2 cities, once you venture out of your house, whether you are going to a mall, you are going to, you can say, some high street to pick some of the stuff which people are expecting should see some increased traction due to cut in the GST prices, then definitely QSRs become a very, very viable option for consumers for the consumption of food. So this entire scenario which is building up seems positive for the QSR companies, and they should gain out of it. Secondly, for them, some of the raw materials they have seen some reduction in the GST, so that should also be beneficial. Although I believe some part of it might be passed on to the consumers in terms of, say, some discounts or prices, etc. But having said that, I think if you look at, say, Jubilant Foods in particular, I think this is one name we are quite positive about, because the company has taken a lot of initiatives. They have you can say done away with delivery charges. They have reduced the prices in the past, and now I think as of now in terms of visibility, Jubilant Foods looks best in the entire QSR space, because the numbers have been good. A lot depends on how Q3 goes when the higher base kicks in. But otherwise, I think at the 630 levels, post the correction which has seen the stock come up by, say, nearly 10 odd %, I think the stock looks pretty decent at the current juncture.
Okay, so that's the take on the QSR space, but of course there's been a little bit of a reduction coming in on pizza bread, so that's gone from 5% to 0 GST. So positive for Jubilant, and of course raw material pricing has also reduced, positive for QSR companies. Somil, your take on the charts on Jubilant, and also other than Jubilant, let's talk about the underperformers from the QSR space, a Devyani or a Westlife. Not much happening in the last 1 year. Any change on the charts, any uptick that you're spotting?
I think Jubilant Foods still works for me. It's going great at this point of time because it has been forming a huge triangle pattern. Now, in the medium term outlook, in the short term, definitely low top, slow bottom formation, trading below the averages, trading below 200 daily moving average. But overall, the long term trend still remains positive, and it is forming a huge triangle pattern, as I said, on the weekly charts. And this triangle pattern is expected to break on the upside. It is at the probably the most important crucial levels at this point of time, which is around 600 615 levels, and I'm not expecting the stock to go below the previous swing lows of 575. So I'll be positive on Jubilant Food, and I'll be expecting this triangle to break on the upside, which has great targets on the upside. In the medium term outlook, I'll be expecting at least 730 levels to as a target in the medium term, and the stop loss probably would be around 575, which is the previous swing low.
All right, let's watch out for these counters. But Amnish, wanted to know your take on the IT space right now because, well, of course, we all are well aware about the news flow surrounding the IT counters and the stocks are also getting hammered. But with respect to the earnings and some of these buyback announcements, how do you see IT playing up? Do you believe that it can give an opportunity for the investors to accumulate this particular decline, or do you believe that one should stay away from the IT pack for right now?
I think as I discussed in the past also, I am not very gung-ho on the sector because I think it's in a state of flux. If you look at, say, not now, maybe say past few years, particularly after COVID, so the growth rates have not been that great. That is one. Secondly, yes, the H1B visas it's not going to, you can say, have a very major impact on the profitability, but overall the scenario doesn't look to be very exciting. There is more, you can say, protectionism which is coming in globally. That is one. Secondly, the impact of AI is also likely to be on the negative side. If you look at the hiring of the companies and if you look at the entire scenario today, the major growth in the services is coming in GCCs and not in the software exports per se. So I believe the companies offer many of these, they have got cash flows, their balance sheets are strong, they offer good dividend yields, and many of them can buy back shares. But in terms of the growth visibility, because market always loves growth, when you get higher growth, you get high P multiples. So the higher growth scenario doesn't seem to be visible to me, at least for the coming say few quarters, barring some company here or there where due to their own initiative they can beat the industry. But otherwise, I think I'm not very positive on this space.
Okay. Amnish, great to have you on the show. Thanks as always for joining in with your thoughts. Let's get in some mid-cap strategies going while we wait for the pre-open rates to settle down. Kunal, what's on your list?